I really like Dutch politics. I live in two-party America, and looking at all the different political parties is mind-blowing to me. You're telling me that instead of just picking between Team Blue or Team Red, you get to pick between all these different parties? They managed to have all these different political parties due to using a different voting system compared to the United States. In America, we divide everyone up into 435 districts that each elects one representative in a system called first past the post. Basically, whoever gets the most votes wins. The electoral system inevitably leads to a two-party system, as it has done in America and the United Kingdom. But in the Netherlands, they use a system called proportional representation. Instead of districts, the entire country votes for political parties, and then the seats in Congress are divided up by that instead. In other nations, like Spain, however, they use proportional representation at a state-by-state level. Typically, there is some sort of threshold a political party has to meet. Germany, for instance, has a 5% threshold, meaning that a political party must receive 5% of the vote to receive any seats in their Congress. And most thought experiments on what a multi-party America would look like use some sort of threshold. In J.J. McCullough's video, he uses Israel's 3% threshold to speculate what it would look like, which leads him to create a 10-party America. Others use a more strict 5% threshold, like Germany, which tends to either look like a 5 or 6-party America, like in TLDR's multi-party America video. But I want to imagine America without a threshold, where to be represented in Congress, a party just needs to win one seat at the national level. The Netherlands way of government, if you will. Instead of 5 parties or 10 parties, this video will go over, briefly, 21 different political parties that might form in America if we were to use this system. For this thought experiment to work, I'm going to assume that America has become a semi-presidential system, where the president is elected similar to the French method. Everyone is held on the same ballot, and then a few weeks later, the top 2 finishers go head-to-head in a second round. Typically, this leads to one left-wing and one right-wing candidate being selected. Although I suppose it is possible that vote splitting could happen and allow either 2 left-wing or 2 right-wing candidates to get into the second round. Alright, let's go over the parties.
О необходимости которой все время говорили большевики, совершилась!
Looking firstly at the furthest left parties, we have the Greens, the Socialist Workers' Party, and the Communist Party. The Communist Party would be the smallest party by far. They'd be direct advocates for a revolution and the establishment of a Marxist-Leninist state. They would very rarely choose to work with other political parties. The Socialist Workers' Party is similar but more moderate, and willing to use democratic means to enact change. Still, they're hostile to pretty much all other political parties besides the Greens. The Greens are similar to the Green Party of today. Like the Green parties in Europe, they focus primarily on environmental issues. However, they would often differ themselves from the more mainstream left by being anti-NATO and anti-funding to Ukraine. They, unlike the European Greens, are much more anti-internationalist and support America sticking to American affairs. This party would probably be led by either Jill Stein, Howie Hawkins, or Cornel West. Although they would have some influence, the Greens, the Socialist Workers' Party, and the Communist Party would all struggle to win the left-wing votes from
the American people are tired of women.
The Democratic Socialists of America would be founded after Bernie Sanders would come close, but fail to make the second round in the 2016 presidential race. Bernie, along with the much younger Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, would work with the DSA organization to create the new political party and contest the 2018 general election. I imagine this party would be popular among the youth, having a base in urban areas and with people that feel abandoned by the other political parties. They would differentiate themselves with more fringe parties on the left by supporting membership in NATO, and by being more pragmatic in working with the other more mainstream left-wing parties. Bernie's advocacy for the working class and his charisma has managed to get the party far in the 6 years since its founding, but it remains to be seen if they will manage to continue their growth when Bernie retires or passes away.
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
What?
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
Let's not do it right now.
The Progressive Party is far from their peak during the Franklin Roosevelt days. Their choice not to run Elizabeth Warren in the 2016 election would backfire, as it allowed for the DSA to come in and eat at their working class support. shown by Warren's failings in the 2020 election against Biden and Bernie. Once a party of the working class, they have now become a party of the highly educated within the suburbs and urban areas. Although supporting many of the same policies as the DSA, they are more hesitant to support ideas like workplace democracy and refer to themselves as progressive capitalists instead of socialists. But they have begun to find a niche for themselves between the dominant Labor Party and the growing Democratic Socialists. This party would be led by Elizabeth Warren, but I think she would be looking for a new heir after her failed presidential run in 2020.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Labor, officially called the Labor Party, is the oldest party, founded in response to the inequality of the Gilded Age. Led by President Joe Biden, they are more pragmatic and less likely to support nationalized healthcare and free college, instead favoring a public healthcare option and grants to poorer college kids. They're the most similar to our real-life Democratic Party. They fell as the most dominant left-wing party after their failures in the 1984 and 1988 elections, allowing for the rise of the New Democrats to become the largest party on both the left and in America, electing their own Bill Clinton to the White House. But Labor's Barack Obama managed to pull off a stunning victory against the New Democratic Hillary Clinton in the first round of the 2008 presidential election, giving life to the Labor and once again making them the most dominant party on the left. In 2016, they chose to not run a candidate against Hillary Clinton, and for the most part supported her campaign in the first round, helping her defeat challenger Bernie Sanders. Their support among the working class has been dwindling, but they managed to grow among wealthier, white suburban, and urban voters. They probably have the greatest amount of support among minorities besides political parties that are specifically focused on racial issues, like the next one we're going to talk about.
Do you identify as black? No, it's a serious question, because you might not identify.
The National Black Caucus is based on the real-life Congressional Black Caucus. This party would be mostly left-wing and focus on issues affecting the black community. They would likely be large advocates of police reform, affirmative action, and many would be advocates for reparations as well. On issues from healthcare to gay marriage, however, there would be large disagreements among members. It's likely more urban northern members would support more left-wing policies and cooperation with parties like Labor, while southern rural members would more likely to support centrist or even right-wing policies at times, supporting cooperation with the more center parties like New Democrats or the Blue Dogs. This party would have likely been founded in the early 1900s to promote the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act of 1964 and 1965 respectively. But these rifts between members might lead to them separating into a more left-wing and a more conservative party. Although they would still have a lot of support among African Americans, I would imagine most would still have another political party they would rather give their support to due to other economic and social issues. Still, the National Black Caucus would command large support in the House. They would likely be led by former Congressional Black Caucus chair and current Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass.
Big gay ice cream is the best.
We have begun to reach the most centrist party. The New Democrats would be founded by Bill Clinton in response to the conservatives' dominance throughout the 80s. His successful presidential run would bring them to national prominence, but after their loss in the 2008 presidential election, they would begin to fall. In 2008, their new leader, Hillary Clinton, lost the 2008 presidential election, not even breaking into the top two. The rise of Labor's charismatic Barack Obama continued to bring their party down in seat count, and their loss again in the second round of the 2016 presidential election continued to cement the idea they were no longer a relevant force in politics. In 2020, they ran Mayor Mike Bloomberg, who got absolutely destroyed in the debate by the progressive choice Elizabeth Warren.
I'd like to talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
They are socially liberal and fiscally conservative, and mostly supported by wealthier people in the suburbs. Quick note, when you think of New Democrats, you likely think of the caucus in the House of Representatives, but this party is different from them. Adam Schiff, for instance, a prominent New Democrat in our timeline, would likely be a member of Labor instead. The New Democrats here in this hypothetical situation are willing to cooperate with more right-wing parties, unlike many of the New Democrats in our timeline.
I'm Jared Golden, and I approve this message, because while Bruce Poliquin hides from his votes to gut Social Security and Medicare, I'm a straight shooter.
Rural Democrats, where the times have gone. Led by Joe Manchin and the younger Jared Golden of Maine, the Blue Dogs are a centrist political party like the New Democrats, but a little different. They have lost many of their seats, and rural voters have shifted to the Patriot Party and the New Conservative Coalition. Unlike the New Democrats, however, their voter base is primarily in rural areas and are more socially conservative because of this. They often find it very easy to work with both sides on the issues that matter most to them.
I'll tell you what. $10,000? $10,000 bet?
I'm not in the betting business, but I'll show you.
Rockefeller Republicans, another dying breed. These are liberal and moderate conservatives in our timeline, led by Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. This party is able to find compromises with the left, despite being more conservative. I also imagine a Mormon alliance led by Mitt Romney would tie themselves into this party at the national level. They would have the most support in New England, Utah, and Alaska, but struggle in hardcore liberal and conservative areas.
Mr. Yang, what more?
I'm over here.
Mr. Yang, what more can you say
Judy.
to the American people?
Judy,
I'm sorry, Mr. Steyer.
Alright, let's talk about Andrew Yang. In our timeline, the Real Forward Party is mostly just fair vote if it turned into a political party. But at the start, it had focuses on tax reform and universal basic income. I can't really categorize it as like left or right now. I think Yang would go into any coalition as long as they supported some niche policies ideas and then vote along with whatever else they wanted to do.
String of
In this world, I think conservatives would have put up a united conservative party during the rise of Ronald Reagan. This conservative party would be more interventionist, supporting George Bush's presidency and his war in Iraq. With the rise of parties to the right and then eventually the rise of Trump, they would collapse going into the 2016 presidential election, with the Christian conservatives, the libertarians, and the younger New Conservative Coalition all leaving and starting new parties to run their own candidates. The old guard is what remains. This party would be traditionally conservative, often touting the legacy of Ronald Reagan, and supporting keeping America strong abroad. They are more hesitant of Donald Trump and his Patriot Party. Led by Mitch McConnell, most of their members of Congress would be much older, and they would struggle to appeal to younger voters. The party is hoping to change that with the rise of Deputy Party Leader and presidential candidate Nikki Haley, dreaming of one day restoring the party of Reagan.
You don't take somebody like Fauci and coddle him. You bring Fauci in, you sit him down, and you say, Anthony, you are fired.
The New Conservative Coalition, in terms of policy, is quite varied. You have more moderate members that want to work with the old guard, but you also have the more conservative members that want to work with the Patriot Party, or even the Alternative for America, both of which we will talk about soon. They're often the unifying party among conservatives, being the ones to work to form a coalition among the right. Led by Ron DeSantis and Kevin McCarthy, they hope to form a new conservative dominance in America by any means necessary, whether that means working with Mitch McConnell, Mike Pence, or Donald Trump. Although many criticize them for not standing up for enough specific policies.
I appreciate that kind introduction, but the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican, in that order.
The idea for this party was to take Mike Pence and his faction in the Republican Party and copy and paste them. The Christian conservatives would likely be a dying breed, with many defecting to the New Conservatives or the Patriot Party. They would likely be strongly pro-life and generally very socially conservative, but they would also be cautious of working with the Patriot Party and might be willing to compromise with the center on economic policy. Led by Mike Pence, they would have split from the Conservative Alliance due to the rise of Trump and their disagreements with the other factions on how to handle the 2016 election. They would likely have the most support in the socially conservative rural South and the general Bible Belt.
Should someone have to have a government-issued license to drive a car?
Hell no.
What's next? Requiring a license to make toast in your own damn toaster?
The license to drive? You know, I'd like to see some competency exhibited by people before they drive.
The Libertarian Party in this timeline is similar to the Libertarian Party of today, but with a greater twist. The Libertarian Party in real life often has disagreements on social policy, specifically the way libertarians should handle abortion and LGBTQ issues. But many of the social conservative libertarians are in the Republican Party currently. So with no Republican Party, I imagine that the social conservatives would outnumber the social liberals, causing widespread distrust in each other. This party would be led by Joe Jorgensen and Rand Paul, with Joe Jorgensen quietly trying to prevent a collapse of the party while Rand Paul much more publicly supports the social conservative faction. The Libertarian Party would be less interventionist than the other factions of the right and more likely to call for a withdrawal of NATO. Many of their members are willing to find compromise with the left on social policy, which again causes greater division among its members.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Yes, it could have been called the America First Party. Yes, it could have been called the Make America Great Again Party. Hell, it could have been even called the Trump Party. But I chose the Patriot Party, and you will have to deal with it. This is the Trump Party, plain and simple. They are the largest party both on the right and generally in the House. The members of the party follow the whatever Trump says is right policy. They were founded in 2015 due to Trump's disagreements with the Conservative Alliance and in a party that he viewed would be rigged against him. His election to president brought a large number of seats to this new Patriot Party that he could use to work with in Congress. This party has only continued to take up more and more of the right. But if Trump is put in prison or if he eventually retires, it's hard to imagine if anyone will be able to keep this party afloat. Likely candidates like Vivek Ramaswamy or Marjorie Taylor Greene would take over. But the vast majority of Americans have extremely negative sentiments about both, and it is extremely unlikely that either has the wide appeal that Trump has. Many in the other conservative parties distrust the Patriot Party, but are forced to work with Trump in order to ensure majorities. Either Trump or Joe Biden's Labor Party, after all.
Are leftists the least funny people on planet Earth? But they're like, you can't say that, you can't do that, no, I don't like that, I don't like, shut the hell up!
This is the furthest right party, except for one other that we'll talk about later. They're led by Ted Cruz, with deputy leaders Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz, and they pretty much refuse to work with anyone besides the Patriot Party. These are the people that refuse to vote for Kevin McCarthy. Because of their general uncooperation, pretty much no party is willing to coalition with them, since the Alternative for America is a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. Side note, I almost considered calling this the Tea Party, based off of the real-life Tea Party movement, but considering that I wanted to Europeanize these politics in this thought experiment, see the Labor Party instead of the Democratic Party, and also that the Tea Party movement was fundamentally based on taxes instead of social issues, I didn't think it would fit. I think this would have been one of the larger parties, growing from 2010 to 2015, before the Patriot Party took most of their voters away. The fun thing about proportional representation systems is that you occasionally get really weird single-issue parties that also get to participate in Congress. Lightning round, go! Legal Marijuana Now wants marijuana legalization now, often used as a protest vote by young people who normally don't participate in politics. The Pirate Party wants copyright reformation or abolition and supports greater expansion of direct democracy initiatives. People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Surprise! PETA is now a political party. Based on the real-life European animal welfare parties, PETA takes all their policies and then goes absolutely insane with them. The Neo-Confederate Party, supported mostly in the South, listing their policies would probably get this video banned. The South Will Rise Again people led by Roy Moore. In the real world, there would probably be a lot more parties like these. Random parties you would probably not expect to ever hold seats, but these were the ones I could think of off of the top of my head. I want to make it clear that this is not the system of government that I am advocating for. Although I do support a proportional representation system, I think it should be done at the state level through an expanded House and a 5% threshold like seen in the German system of government. Coalition forming would probably be absolutely insane. The one I see would be orchestrated by the New Conservative Party with the support from the Patriot Party, the Libertarians, the Christian Conservatives, the Old Guard, the Rockefeller Republicans, the Blue Dogs, and they probably would have went to Alternative for America first before they listed a bunch of demands that were impossible and instead chose to go to the New Democrats. A coalition consisting of Mike Bloomberg, Ron DeSantis, Kevin McCarthy, and Donald Trump is hard to imagine, but without the modern polarization America sees, it's entirely possible, especially if Congress isn't going to pass much anyways due to Labor's Joe Biden being in the White House. There's a lot of different ways this could play out, but this is just the most logical explanation to me. Separating the Democratic Socialists and the Progressives may be controversial, but it made sense considering how Bernie was more willing to accept the Democratic Socialist label, while Warren insisted that she was a capitalist. The bases of both political parties could probably be seen in their presidential coalitions. The idea of a progressive party also made sense considering that Teddy Roosevelt literally founded a party called the Progressive Party, and I would imagine that they'd be able to survive to the modern day. But I doubt many of the die-hard Bernie Sanders supporters would want to be a part of a self-described capitalist party. Some of the names are also probably silly, but I generally wanted to avoid the term Democrat and Republican, with the exception of the New Democrats, but I couldn't think of a better name for them. I really wanted this video to feel authentic and not just a lazily thought out, what if 20 political parties appeared out of thin air? I didn't have enough time to get into all the details, but each political party has a unique history that ties into the way they act and associate with the other parties. If this video does well enough, I'll probably write a series about this multi-party America on my Substack, which you can check out in the description. To end this video, I just want you all to appreciate the chaos that would likely come from a political party system like this. Imagine socialists like Gloria La Riva on the House floor arguing with people that want to bring the Confederacy back. Imagine Mike Bloomberg getting dunked on by Elizabeth Warren over and over and over again. Imagine the chaos and the uncertainty after Election Day when the right didn't sweep as many seats as they thought they would, and the panic that no coalition seemed possible. Oh God, our two-party system really doesn't sound all that bad anymore.